Hello everyone, we're on chapter 9 and we're on paragraph 10. The driving force in the moral life can be discovered by finding out the elements of which individual life is composed. And paragraph 10 is summarized as follows. The driving force is discovered by finding out the elements of the individual life. Okay, so these next four paragraphs, Steiner is going to be talking about what elements are part of the driving force. The driving force, again, is unconscious motives. So he's just going to talk about the different types of unconscious motives that there are out there, and there's basically four of them. So that's going to start off. The first one he talks about in paragraph 11, so we're going to move on to 11. The first level of individual life is that of perceiving, more particularly perceiving through the senses. This is the region of our individual life in which perceiving translates itself directly into willing, without the intervention of either a feeling or a concept. The driving force here involved is simply called instinct. The satisfaction of our lower, purely animal needs, that is, hunger, sexual intercourse, etc., comes about in this way. The main characteristic of instinctive life is the immediacy with which the single percept releases the act of will. This kind of determination of the will, which belongs originally only to the life of the lower senses, may, however, become extended also to the percepts of the higher senses. We may react to the percept of a certain event in the external world without reflecting on what we do, without any special feeling connecting itself with the percept, as in fact happens in our conventional social behavior. The driving force of such action is called tact or moral good taste. The more often such immediate reactions to a percept occur, the more the person concerned will prove himself able to act purely under the guidance of tact. That is, tact becomes his characterological disposition. And 11 is summarized as follows. The first element of the individual life is perceiving through the senses. Perceiving is translated directly into will. Lower animal needs, such as hunger and sex, comes about this way. This type of driving force is called instinctive life. The percept instantly becomes an act of will. So that's basically what he's talking about, is a percept that becomes directly an act of will, and there's no concept or feeling. I'm sure lots of us, if we contemplate our own life, we can see lots of times where we just operate purely on this instinctual level. When we're hungry, like we just grab something to eat, and basically the main point of this first level is that the percept immediately releases the act of will. In the latter half of this paragraph, he also gives examples of how instinct can also be something that operates at a more higher level, and he points out the instance where in our social behavior, and that higher level of instinctual life would be called having tact or moral good taste, because the lower, as he mentions, this kind of determination of the will, which belongs originally only to the life of the lower senses, may, however, become extended also to the percept of the higher senses. The lower senses would be, as he mentioned earlier, the whole hunger and sex and whatnot. But he's saying as well it can apply to a more higher level where we operate instinctually like that. And so if someone, it says here, the more often such immediate reactions to a percept occur, the more the person concerned will prove himself able to act purely under the guidance of tact. That is, tact becomes his characterological disposition. So it applies to, the fact that we can socially learn how to behave in certain ways, by saying please and thank you and whatnot. And you don't do it because you feel like it, or you may not do it because you have a concept, you just do it because it's socially what you do. So in that sense, you're acting on an instinctual level. And that's basically what he's talking about in paragraph 11. So we're going to move on to paragraph 12. The second level of human life is feeling. Definite feelings accompany the percepts of the external world. These feelings may become the driving force of an action. When I see a starving man, my pity for him may become the driving force of my action. Such feelings, for example, are shame, pride, sense of honor, humility, remorse, pity, revenge, gratitude, piety, loyalty, love, and duty. And 12 is summarized as follows. The second element of the individual life is feeling, and it can become the driving force of an action. I think we all can see times in our lives where we have a feeling and we don't really get it until after the fact. So like someone may punch you or whatever, or you see something and you just instantly get angry or whatnot, and you didn't think about it. It just happened immediately. And then I'm sure lots of times we look back and you're like, wow, like that was really an intense moment. What was I thinking or whatever, and that's sort of showing how our life of feeling as well can be unconscious motives in our lives, and that's what he's pointing out. Again, the term driving force, you can think of it as an unconscious motive if it makes it easier to understand. So the next paragraph is 13, so we'll probably just finish that for today. The third level of life amounts to thinking and forming mental pictures. A mental picture or a concept may become the motive of an action through mere reflection. Mental pictures become motives because in the course of life, we regularly connect certain aims of our will with percepts, which reoccur again and again in more or less modified form. Hence, with people not wholly devoid of experience, it happens that the occurrence of certain percepts is always accompanied by the appearance in consciousness of mental pictures of actions that they themselves have carried out in a similar case or have seen others carry out. These mental pictures float before their minds as patterns which determine all subsequent decisions. They become parts of their characterological disposition. Practical experience merges gradually into purely tactful behavior. This happens when definite typical pictures of actions have become so firmly connected in our minds with mental pictures of certain situations in life that, in any given instance, we skip over all deliberation based on experience and go straight from the percept to the act of will. And 13 is summarized as follows. The third element of individual life is thinking and forming mental pictures, which can become the motive of an action through mere reflection. This type of driving force is called practical experience. What's interesting here is he points out that a mental picture or concept can become the motive of an action through mere reflection, and that basically means that just by taking some time to assess our own mental pictures and what we think, we've already taken something that was unconscious in us and we made it conscious through just mere reflection. So for him, what can work unconsciously in us is the mental pictures that we have, and if you look at your own life, I'm sure you can see where you had a certain mental picture of how you think something will be or how it is, and then you realize you've just been acting based on this mental picture, but it wasn't something you consciously did. It was always in the back of your mind. Like a lot of people could have very fear-driven mental pictures. Like you imagine the worst is going to happen and then you just act on that, but you're not even aware that you're doing that. It's unconsciously working in you, this mental picture, or this mental picture of people hurting you or something good too as well. It doesn't just apply to bad things. So this type of driving force he calls practical experience. With this type of driving force, the mental pictures can become patterns of behavior, and so that's what he's also pointing out in this paragraph, is that they can become part of our characterological disposition, which again means our personality and whatnot. So that's what mental pictures can lead to. So that's all we're going to cover for today. So if you have any questions or comments, just send me a message. Have a good day.